So in Australia, modifying your vehicle is somewhat of a difficult avenue. Sure enough, you could do absolutely anything you want to your vehicle, but getting it on the road and lasting more than a week without being pulled over is starting to become more and more difficult. The police absolutely relentless when it comes to what's called a defect. So in the States, if you have something modified or incorrect with your vehicle that a police officer does not like, they will simply issue you, I think it's called a fix-it ticket, and you'd never have to actually do anything about it other than pay it. Sometimes you have to clear it depending on what state you're in, but essentially it doesn't hinder you for using your vehicle. In Australia, if you have your car modified in a way that the police do not like, you will be issued what's called a defect notice. That will immediately, or maybe they give you a few hours to drive home, or sometimes they ground the vehicle, it needs to be towed. They will immediately suspend your registration. It will immediately suspend your insurance. So you are now left with borderline a worthless asset that is sitting on the side of the road with probably nothing wrong with it other than it sits a couple of centimeters too low for their liking. When you get a vehicle defected in Australia, to clear it, through my state anyway, you have to get it inspected by the state. Now, you can be defected for anything, absolutely anything whatsoever. It could be too low, it could be too loud. You could be defected for an aftermarket steering wheel, shift knob, seat. Some things that people find ridiculous, lights, tint, but regardless of what they find you on that day to have illegal, they will make you take the entire vehicle back to standard. Over here, I notice that everyone either throws away or gives away or sell their spare parts that they've taken off their vehicle, their standard struts, their standard exhaust. In Australia, every car guy has a little cubby in their garage that is full with all the standard parts for the day they inevitably get defected. I know in some eastern states, we have, well, actually all across the country, we have roadside breath testing or random breath testing where a police officer will pull you into a queue of cars and you have to issue them your license and then take a breath test and then they go over your car, and it's something that's unavoidable. You have to go through it. So if you're unlucky enough to be there in that situation, sometimes they even set up those checkpoints just for car modifications. They have strike forces, they have very, very, very taxpayer-funded blitzes that they will go through the entire state and pull over everything and anything they can. Sometimes they might target lifted four-wheel drives. Sometimes they will target supercars doing charity runs. We had this event in Queensland. It was like a gumball rally, and it was a charity event, and they had all these supercars and high performance cars and modified vehicles that were all doing the correct thing. They were part of a rally, and they were, I think, attending a raceway or something of that nature. And upon exit, the police decided to set up a station on each direction and pull over every single car, and I think 70 to 80% of them all copped fines, defects, and it was super disappointing. And it really put a dampener on the event because it's thousands of dollars of revenue, thousands and thousands of dollars of revenue off of people doing the right thing. I think that's something that definitely changes from country to country, whereas people over in Australia have this tall poppy syndrome where they just can't see other people doing well. It's a cancer on the country, and it's definitely affects the way people go about their business, especially if you're working in a government role. For some reason, there's something inside most people that work in the police force that just want to punish someone else for having something nice. And it's one of the most disheartening things to see, but it is something that occurs every day. You see that nice modified vehicles will be targeted, whereas a rust bucket will drive past. It's obviously unsafe, and it will have a blind eye turned to them. So on some of the eastern states, I know that when you're pulled into a RBT or a defect station, which they quite blankly call it, they have this wheel on a stick. It's a wheel that sits, I think, 100 mil, and it's connected to a pole, and a police officer will just go, "Hi, how you doing?" and just roll the stick under the car. Dunk! As soon as it hits something, you're gone. Defect. And you will then have to get your car inspected and get it cleared for anything else. So if it's just a little bit of exhaust hanging too low, that means all your wheels come off, your suspension comes out, your exhaust comes off, any intake mods that you might have, if the car's been turboed that it shouldn't be turboed or anything like that, absolutely 100% goes back to standard. And what's sad about this is a lot of cars are deemed economically not viable to do so. So you'll have a lot of cars that are parted out, a lot of cars that won't see the road ever again, and people lose their pride and joys that they've dumped thousands and thousands of dollars into. When a car is involved in an accident, it'll be obviously taken to a crash repair. They'll go over it, they'll quote it, and if the car is bad enough, they will total it, or we call it statutory write-off, which a car can no longer be registered and it is for parts only. It'll be sold at auction. Or you can have what's called a repairable write-off, which is kind of like a rebuilt title if you were to get it registered again, but the process is much different. You got to go through all these different tiers of inspections, and every single part that you use to fix the car, you need the VIN numbers of that car, full log, photo by photo, like step by step, how you manage to repair the vehicle. And it's very difficult to get them. And then once you do, it's got a bad PPSR, we call it, and it'll show the date of the incident and the date of how, like when it got fixed and all that sort of stuff to see registration again. At home, the vehicle modifications and what's deemed roadworthy is extremely strict, whereas in America, if it's got working, I think, signals and a windscreen, that's basically all you need. As long as it's got a license plate on the back, you can have anything you want. You've got people driving around with their doors off. You've got people driving around cars that have been in accidents, that are missing paddles, that are rusted out. And hey, it's refreshing to see sometimes when you see cars that are highly modified or highly damaged and stuff like that driving around, and the general consensus is, well, that car's making it from A to B. That's good enough. But no, it's definitely not that way at home. In my state, I'm fortunate enough to be a state that doesn't require annual inspections. So once a car has obtained registration in the past, they basically see it that it could be registered again. The car could be sitting in a paddock for 20 years and then you can register it straight away. Whereas in some of the eastern states, they need an annual inspection, or they need a pink slip or blue slip. I can't remember what it's called now, but yeah, they do need to require inspections. But the catch with that is that accredited workshops can do that, not necessarily the state. So if you've got a buddy that's, got a workshop that's accredited to do this, they might turn a blind eye to a few modifications here and there. But they are starting to crack down on it and audit it, and sometimes they send cars through as decoys to see if they can trick said workshop into turning a blind eye. So it's starting to get more and more difficult as time goes by, and the amount of time and resources of police put into road law is something that's astronomically not in the right ratio with the actual crime that's going on out there.
Our sponsor for this month of VINwiki Car Stories is Bridgestone, and I just had a set of their brand new Jeweler AT Ascent tires installed on my Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Now with this off-road Cayenne project, I've experimented with 8 different wheel and tire combinations, and I really think this is the perfect solution. I still get all of the all-terrain benefits, the off-road performance that I want, and the indestructibility that I love, but I also get a 40,000 mile warranty and all the road composure that I lost with some of the other tire options. So I get the best of both worlds, off-road, on-road, as well as all the latest technology from Bridgestone. Of course, we love their Potenza range of tires for sports cars and supercars, but now their Jeweler AT Ascent is the perfect solution for your on and off-road needs. So click the link in the description below now to learn more about Bridgestone and see what they've got for your car.